This video is brought to you by BTI Institute, a New Jersey leader in certification-based management training.
A lean coffee today led by Nitin and Bob. And so Nitin, Bob, the time is yours.
Sure. And when you have a meeting, when people come into a meeting, sometimes people never say a word. And so when you start a meeting, it's always good to have some level of something, to talk about, to give people permission to talk. And what we just experienced was that, and it's okay if you don't want to talk. You shouldn't feel pressured. And so you want the environment to be safe. And so that's what it's all about: safety and people having fun and people participating. And so with that said, I guess Nitin and I, we're going to do a lean coffee, as you were warned. So Nitin, do you want me to share the board, or do you want to share the board?
Why don't you share the board, Bob, like we
Sure.
usually do?
Okay.
And it's good on occasion, if people have attended these historically, you would have noticed sometimes I have my camera off and Bob has his on, which is fine as well. We're in a digital world, but if you're feeling shy or not camera ready, that's totally okay as well. And we
Okay.
see a Trello board coming up. Thank you for that, Bob.
Sure. So if you want to get started, Nitin, you do a great intro on this.
Sure. For some of us who have not experienced lean coffee, this is a fun, engaging way of bringing things to life without a set agenda. This is the collective wisdom and curiosity of a group. Some people have attended, some people may leave early, some people thought they would attend, right? We have a visual tool here. It's a Trello board, and if you just look left to right, something like swim lanes, you have the to-do, in progress, blocked, done, and some aha moments. And quite simply, we're going from left to right. So right now, I'm explaining the lean coffee. And what Bob could do is, having access to the board, click and move a card over. And if you notice in the next column, something below, there's some other things like socializing the Trello board. So you've seen these chats in the chat. And then some people have been added to the board as early as a couple of minutes ago to yesterday morning or afternoon. So imagine if you were to go with an agile team and enter and see what's called an information radiator and just look at the board or the swim lane, you should be kind of able to see what's going on. And that's how lean coffee is evolving here. If we get stuck on something, and we'll see some cards popping up, we'll put them in blocked, or we set a timer for something else. And if we are satisfied with the discussion that we have, we move them to the done. The aha moments are, of course, light bulbs, any insights, anything we think about, anything we'd like to share with the group. We most certainly can do that. And as we can see, somebody has already started adding some cards all the way under the to-do. And this time we can open it up. If you have access to this board, you can click on the plus sign, add a card, and we'll give everybody, let's say, 5 minutes. So if this was a room, I would give out, notepad or stickies and do a silent writing exercise. This way, we don't have anybody dominating a conversation. Everybody participates or has equal opportunity to participate as well. Once we have a fair number of cards, there is a voting option as well. And Bob can show that to you and also show you how we will sort them. So feel free, use the Trello board. If you do have technical issues, you can put something in the chat. This is any topic, anything in the world of agility that goes. It could be something at your current workplace. It could be something with another team. It could be something you've read online, an article, anything. No restrictions over here.
And it would be great if we can get more than a couple cards. And if you can't put something in, just put the item in chat and we'll get it in there for you. Hey, Nitin, I see an AI one, which might align with what you did last month.
Could be. I'm also looking at the chat. Somebody's asking how they can read the cards. Bob is sharing the screen, but I'm also going to put the Trello board again into the chat. So Tyus, you should be able to just see what Bob is sharing on the screen with the left to right. And as soon as you put in a card, it'll pop up in there. And quite a few people are adding some things now.
Is that making it better for you to see?
Looks like a good number of cards coming in. Oh, I got one more in the chat. I'm going to add one more, and then maybe we can do a voting of add that last one there. Alrighty, Bob, do we want to kind of see if there are any common trends or patterns over here?
They seem unique. I haven't seen anything that feels like a pattern. So for like affinity mapping or something like that. But I would now, I think we should go into voting.
Alrighty, sure. Yeah, so you're ahead of me. So again, if we were in a room together, we'd ask team members, hey, is there anything similar or common here? And we'd get them close together. And if we were to vote, you might have to just share that, Bob. You can click on a card and you'll get an option there below.
So when you click on a card, if you put your cursor in the last column and then scroll down, there's this option, which is third from the bottom, that says vote, where if you click on it, it will add a vote to the actual card. Let's say if I was really interested in this first one, I would click on vote, and now you will see a thumbs up. And if I change my mind, I'd click on it again to remove that vote. What we will then do is with your votes, and if you could just be nice and maybe limit it to 3 votes, like this is very similar to like dot voting. Like you can imagine if we were sitting in the same room and these Post-its were on the wall, somebody would say, okay, everybody gets 3 dots. And so you could just walk around to the board and just put your dot on it. Since we're just gonna have to trust everybody. To put 3 in. And so, and you can't vote for one item more than once. That's the other disadvantage of using, something electronic. But if you see something that you like, you can put a vote in. And then what I can do is I can click on these 3 dots and sort by most votes. And then what that will do is it will bring the ones with the most votes toward the top. And so what the whole thought process of this is that of the people participating, these are the items that we're most interested in. It's not saying that something on the board is not important. It's really just saying, it's just showing a level of interest. Is everybody able to do that? I think we're done adding people to the Trello board. As you see, I moved creating the Trello board, explaining Lean Coffee, adding people and socializing it over to done. I'm not sure what this one here is in progress. Nitin, is this something that you added, Agile?
No, let me.
Sorry, can you go through how to vote again? That's not seem to be
Sure.
working for me in the app.
No problem. If you go into Trello and you click on the item, if you notice, like when you mouse over the item, it gives you a hand. You can click on it. And then if you scroll to the bottom of the card, there's this button that says vote, and then you can click on that. So it's looking like, what are the Agile trends for 2024? They seem to be, that's coming up the highest.
All righty. So people can still add cards along the way as we go on ahead. They can still vote if they hadn't. But as you can see, I added a few other things in progress. As Bob was talking, we hadn't explicitly caught this in a card, but this is something that Scrum Masters sometimes do, or team members will do. Work could emerge, or we make things more explicit so that they're visible. So we can just recognize or acknowledge what's happening, or potentially even act upon them. So again, Bob could move the explain voting on cards to the done, because he did a great job on that. And the audience can keep adding cards. We can leave it in progress, or if we see there's nothing, we can just validate and move it to the done. So let's look at the very first item. And in the interest of time, we try to keep it to about 5 to 7 minutes of discussion. Bob and I participate sometimes we facilitate, we open it up. What are Agile trends for 2024? Most interesting. There is the 17 State of Agile report. I just pulled up, but I'm curious about this and what people might be thinking. And I'm also curious if they feel AI, not to bias the conversation too much, might have an impact with Agile teams, because we're seeing a lot of that pop up with courses and forums. And we also did something last month around this. So, Bob, your thoughts, or anybody else?
Any thoughts out there about this? Like, what are you seeing? This year is different. What I was seeing last year, that there seemed to be less of an emphasis on Agile teams and Agile ways of working and Agile coaching. It seemed like those jobs were starting to, become less and less as far as, what I was seeing. But this year, it's, again, I'm, I'm not looking for a job or anything, but I've just been noticing that there seems to be a lot more activity on LinkedIn, as far as, availability of jobs and things like that. So it seems like we're experiencing like a sine wave where I kind of saw it, like, we were kind of in the lower dip of it last year. It just felt that way. I don't know. And I'd really like to hear everybody in the audience, like what your experience was last year, and like what you're seeing this year. How about you, Nitin?
It's a mixed bag for me, at least to see what's out there, and also some news media channels are talking about the impact of AI in tech jobs, right? And certainly how AI could augment certain roles. So as a product owner, former product owner, if I were writing user stories, if I could have a vision that I put in and I asked, hey, could you give me 10 user stories? Then I might get some things with user story titles. It may not fully give out or vet out an acceptance criteria because it doesn't have some other artifacts, such as the definition of done, what work has transpired or finished, and see how granular we are in our evolution in our roadmap. But it's something that could help with time. It could also get stories that were not thought about. So it's just an augmentation is the word I would use, or a supplement that could help with some of the things.
That's that's what I've been seeing as well. Even in the PMI webinars that I've been watching for PDUs, it seemed like every third one had some reference to I tried AI and here were the results. And the conclusions were almost always I would never use it just blind, but I might use it as a support tool or something to bootstrap a presentation. And as far as the jobs in PM are concerned, I think in tech in general, and apologies to those folks that aren't in tech, I'm seeing a growth in jobs that have AI in them as companies explore that. And some retrenching in IT companies that had expanded quite dramatically during COVID. So it's a really weird time when very selective areas are expanding still, and others are still deciding their headcount is too high. Is that consistent with what other folks are saying?
I would say I'm also a project manager in the technical field. I'm seeing, first of all, a lot of different ways to be helpful as a PM with AI. One of my favorite things is the note-taking tools. I mean, something as simple as that, right? For me to get a summary and tasks and action items out of something that's recording my meeting, as scary as that is, it's incredibly helpful when you're trying to keep up with note-taking. So I'm enjoying kind of researching and implementing some of those, but most of my projects are also AI projects, like building AI applications for other companies. So I'm really kind of enjoying it. It's interesting, although most of my projects, I feel like I'm replacing jobs and putting people out of work eventually, but it's definitely interesting. Definitely an uptake in AI jobs.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
All right, let's give another few seconds. Anybody else have anything?
I guess to expand on what you were saying, the next card is recommended courses for managing AI projects. What did you do to get ready to manage those?
So it's interesting because I put that ticket up there. I'm really looking for some type of course, just because it's I love the agile methodology, right? I actually love more of a hybrid approach. I like going through more of a waterfall approach while I'm going through the design define stages, before I get client buy-in to actually say, okay, this is agreed upon. Now let's go into more of that agile build, verify, operate kind of methodology. But for AI projects, there's so much unknown. Like it's really hard to gather requirements and know what kind of data you're going to get to be able to build models and give a workable solution to a client. So it's really it's a little bit more difficult to manage. So I was just looking for some courses out there that would have kind of tips and tricks of how to kind of get ahead of those unknowns.
So it sounds like maybe, Nitin, we should move into this next card.
I think so. Let's move the in progress one to the done, and then move the other one. I'm also just going to upload some documents to the chat as a resource, and we'll keep talking. The recommendations for courses. We had a host last month by the name of Ritesh Vajaria, who was also offering a great discount to people in the PMI space, and particularly to our chapter. That's one avenue you could explore. In terms of some freely available ones, PMI also has one if you just log in to the main site, and it's BDU eligible, so you'll get that. The Scrum Alliance has also got something out there, and Scrum Alliance being one of the main credible certifying bodies with Scrum certifications. Dr. Jeff Sutherland, the co-developer of Scrum, also hosted something as early as yesterday. So you're certainly going to find a lot of discussions and topics on this. But the few that I can think about off the top of my head is one, our guest speaker from last month, two, PMI itself, and three, the Scrum Alliance. Any others out there, folks? Feel free to chime in or put it in the chat.
And I just want to clarify. So these courses that you're referencing, they're not like using AI for project management. They're actually managing AI projects, right? Because I that I'm finding more of the latter.
No, my apologies. I may have misunderstood you. These are more about an introduction to AI.
Okay.
And how AI is decoupled and how it could be used for certain initiatives across different domains.
Okay.
Let me put in a plug here for PMI too. PMI actually just released the second of two free artificial intelligence classes that are available to all members. The first one was about just general artificial intelligence and project management. The one yesterday was about data, the importance of that in artificial intelligence. The other thing I would put a plug in for PMI too is that PMI now actually has a LLM. So it's called PMI Infinity. If you log into PMI.org, you'll see it, you can access it. And so you can ask all things project management in there. The final plug I would put in for PMI is that PMI was approved by ANSI, the company that does standardization, to develop a AI standard for project management. I don't know how long that project is going to take, but that's being worked on. So PMI is taking definitely a leading role in the use of AI in project management. So look for those things, those resources, again, all free for you and available as a PMI member.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Does anyone else in the audience have any exposure or recommendations?
All right, maybe we can move on to the next card. Again, I put a few links into the chat very quickly as well. If people are curious, they can follow.
Okay. Any suggestions on how to encourage feedback during a retrospective? That's a great question. Okay. So, you know, number one, if you don't mind it, and I'll go first.
Sure.
The environment needs to be safe. Okay. So if the person, if the team that you're working with in the retrospective doesn't feel safe, then it's going to be, you know, getting that feedback will be difficult. So safety should be like the prime directive. You know, you should basically, everybody should agree that anything said during a retrospective stays, you know, with the people in the retrospective. If you're taking notes, you know, make sure that anything that could, you know, cause any concerns doesn't get actually written down. You know, you keep that kind of that kind of stuff unwritten, and so that people feel like they're okay. You know, they can come to the environment. And then there's something that you could do. It's called a safety check, where you could basically have people say how safe they feel. Like a 1 would mean they feel totally unsafe, or a 5 would be, you know, they would feel safe, and things in between would mean, you know, the level of safety. So that way you could get a feeling for how safe the environment is. So that you must have that in order for it to work. Another idea might be to do silent writing, where people are allowed to actually, you know, maybe like you give 5 minutes, sort of like when we started with Nitin, he gave 5 minutes for everybody to put their information down on cards. These could be retrospective topics. You know, just, you know, and there's so many different formats that you could follow. Start, stop, continue. That's like the age-old one. You know, you could have those 3 columns, and people could write things for each one of the columns, and then people wouldn't know what was written. So there's definitely ways to make people participate. Another way is you basically just go around and have people calling each other, where you start it off, and then when people, you know, basically if you're doing this typical start, stop, continue, if you're in the start column, go around the table, call on Joe, say, hey, Joe, what, you know, what do you think? After Joe goes, then have Joe call on somebody else until everybody gets a chance. So it basically, and sometimes people just need permission to actually speak and share their ideas. And that's sort of like what we're trying to accomplish with what John does, you know, for the first 15 minutes, we're, you know, to get people talking, to get people, you know, having permission to talk. Nitin, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I echo the sentiments, and the key word being safety, and just some techniques. If you're co-located, what a Scrum Master could do is, hey, everybody close your eyes and give me a fist of 5. So nobody's peeking, right? And you can get a sense of the immediate room and how safe people are feeling, right? But hey, how about me as a facilitator? Let me turn around so I can see. Everybody open your eyes now and do a fist of 5 on me. You know, how much do you trust me as your facilitator, right? Okay, I'm going to turn around now, right? So you have to figure out some techniques to get that safety in place. Certainly, if people are newer to the team, I'm hoping they understand what's the purpose of the retrospective and why we're having it, right? If you have to leave the room and come back to something, fine, great. If you are someone who's been asked to present the findings forward, again, make sure it's done in a safe way. We're not calling out on people. So just a few tips and suggestions. I'm sure others have others as well. So I'll be quiet now.
This is Jay. A couple of things I do is, even if you don't post an item on the retrospective board, there is the ability to thumbs up, like vote up an item. So just to try to get people to break the ice, they may not feel comfortable to actually post an item, which they'll be asked to explain later, but they can just seemingly just give an upvote. Kind of draw them in that way, and then do that a couple of times, and then maybe the next retrospective they may feel more comfortable to actually post an item. And another thing I do is when someone does post an item, I do ask the team, would anybody like to comment on this item? And it's always tough, like trying to pull teeth to get someone to comment on it. But when they do, I always try to thank them for their insights, their experience that they leverage and they bring to the team, and why that's important for the retrospect.
So, if I may, this is Rich. We were using the Confluence site to put our items, the things that went well, things that could be done better, right? And unfortunately, as a Scrum Master, I was taking the information from each of the team members, and I was putting it in the respective spots. And that's all well and good, but when I'm doing that myself, I felt that I was actually I was their translator, if you will, and putting it in the, you know, I may not have put it in their terms, right? And then I found that the company for a period of time was using a tool called Envision. And what I did was I got them all access to the tool. I created 2 sites, one for each of my teams. And I asked them, hey, look, you know, take a Post-it note on this tool, write whatever you want down, things that went well, things that could be done better. Of course, there were issues with the tool initially, and that was one of the issues that was brought up, but it worked for a while. And then we found out, of course, that the company is no longer going to be using that tool. So we went back to the old condition. But I would prefer that the team members, you know, that they put their information that, you know, as they want, you know, to put it, not the way I want it to look, right? Maybe I said too much. But.
That's great,
I-
Rich.
This
That's
is
great.
very good insight. I have a comment on that. This is Bhaskar. So we do exactly the same thing. At least I follow that. That is the Confluence page where it is that what went well, what can be improved, and the action items. But I act as a scribe. I mean, 2 things I follow. I mean, which long back when I started, I spoke with Nitin and he was guiding me a little bit. That is, no senior person is there, no manager is there, nobody. So it's only the developers. So they're free. So 2 things I follow is, one is I am a scribe. Whatever they say, even if I am there every day with them on the Scrum, I do not say what I feel. Whatever they say, they write. And everybody can see what is being done. We do not put the names. That way we know that, okay, whatever is done in the record, at least it is anonymous, because once it's a tool, we know that management might have access to that. So that's the thing I follow. The other part is I added one thing, that is every meeting, every retrospective, I ask them as a team to vote who is the best person worked in that particular sprint. That means instead of looking only at the negative side, also the positive side, that whoever is working best. So that they do that way, little bit of commingling happens in a virtual world. So that's what I follow, and so far I'm finding very good result. And the last point I would like to mention, I copy the action items and the things could be done better from the previous sprint, bring it there and discuss how much we have progressed in that, what we have done, whether we can be close, just like a story kind of thing, or a Kanban board you can think to do in progress and done. So take that approach so that they don't forget, they don't tell and forget, they take action themselves and improve on that. Sorry, it was a long answer.
No, well, the whole point of the retro is to take the action items and try to improve the team, right? And so that it's ideal, isn't it?
Yep. So that's what I follow. So it is not only action items, also whatever they just say from their verbose, that is what they did not like or what could have been improved. I keep it until they come back and they say, no, this is working properly. Just to give a simple example, let's say that developers is completing the story on the last day of the sprint. That means that QA person has got no time to test it and say that, okay, this is done, or make it ready for the business to review it on the review day. So those kind of small things I'm just telling. So everything they take care now.
Those are great things that you're talking about, because when I first got started, you know, in my agile journey, people used to say, you know, we do this retro, but nothing ever happens. You know, like it's like this is a waste of time. And so, like with it, what you're doing is you're actually capturing the action items, and you're basically holding the team accountable. You're bringing them back to the next one and say, hey, how do we do? And then that way they get more, you know, they feel like their input is more valuable because it's actually recorded, and everybody's being held accountable to do something about it and stuff. I think that's great what you're doing. I also just wanted to add one thing. The people that are using Confluence, I gotta, if you don't know this, but it's really cool. You can have multiple people editing the page at the same time. So you don't need to take those notes. You can just tell, hey, you could say, okay, team, if you're using Confluence, you'll have your columns all set up, and just have the page up and just say, okay, team, put your comments in. So they will click on the edit button, and then you as a facilitator would click on the edit button, and then you could actually see as everything's getting filled in, on the page, and then you just basically hit save, and all the comments are captured. So it's something to think about and try. We're using the cloud version. I'm not sure if the server version does that, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is available. I mean, multiple people can edit at the same time.
Yep.
That does get into, I mean, with any meeting of the facilitator and the scribe, if one person tries to do both, then it can be tough to facilitate well. And getting back to this particular card, it's really important to see which members aren't speaking, and to clear out a little space so that those who talk a lot take a break and catch the breath, and you create the space for other folks who might be a little shy to speak up. And if you're scribing and facilitating at the same time, you may not be able to observe that there's other folks that may have good ideas but are getting drowned out.
I'll give my experience, since I use myself as a scribe. Just I type it out and it's round the table. Everybody has got equal chance to speak, and nobody can hog the meeting, because it's like our daily scrum. What went well in the sprint, what improvement you are looking for, and if you have any action item. So they come, they say, we just type it in, and at the end of the meeting, or at the end of everybody goes around, we just look at the whole thing, and then they only, as a team, they decide how to merge some of the comments which are closer to each other, kind of thing, the way we were doing at the beginning, grouping the sticky notes here, same kind of thing. So they do themselves. It's my job is only to scribe. I do not tell anything to them, that what is right, what is wrong, what they're, or any other kind of guidance in retro. It's a free meeting for them.
Okay.
So this is interesting, because I'm hearing two different things. And everybody's come from a very good place, and your heart's in the right place. If I might just supplement with one or two comments. One is that there might have been an assumption that a Scrum Master would be the facilitator and be leading this as a scribe. The other comment could be, this could be an unspoken assumption or norm. Or the third thing could be a little bit experimental. If we want to change something or question or test some assumptions, maybe the people themselves could scribe something using some techniques, depending on whether they're co-located or whether they're virtual. You'd have to figure this out, of course, with the audience. So I'm just hearing two different things that I just wanted to bring forth a little bit, if I could. Was there anything else I may have been talking over, Rich or James?
And what you're highlighting, Nitin, is what makes our job interesting and fun, because you have to adapt to how your team is and what's going on. And And definitely, you're looking for ways to make sure everybody does get a chance to have their voice heard and stuff like that. And so it's, no, it's really fun. Like you could walk into one team and do this and it worked great. You could try it with another team and it won't work at all. So and that's what makes our space really interesting.
Right. And I like what Bhaskar also said, that he's got the spirit of the daily scrum in the retro where everybody's kind of doing a round robin. And it reminds me of the time when I was in a conference room with a team and we had a keyboard that could move about. So as soon as somebody would be talking, the keyboard just went in front of that person. Hey, show us, or, talk more. And it was a good indicator of things as well. All right, should we call an Elmo of this one? Enough, let's move on.
Okay.
We have other...
Thank you.
All right, let's check the votes, make sure that nothing moved up. Nope. Okay. How do you suggest to an agile development team that they're missing the correct product owner, as the current product owner does not have the needed business acumen? Very carefully. Do you want to go first on that one then, or?
Well, I am a former product owner and a product enthusiast, so there are definitely a few things a product owner needs. One is you need to have the trust of the organization and be empowered to make decisions. Two, you need to be available to members of the dev team because you're kind of doing a juggling act between the stakeholders and the executioners. And thirdly, of course, the domain knowledge. And if that is missing, your teams are going to struggle, or your product or whatever you're building will not come to light and life as quickly as anticipated, which will have a domino effect on other things. So besides the philosophy, as I think Bob said delicately, now who's making the suggestion? I'm looking for more context around here. Is this as a Scrum Master asking this question? Are the dev team members unaware, or have there been some dysfunctions and the product owner's got some wrong information? I don't know if someone would be comfortable, whoever put this up, give us more context around this.
Hi, Nitin.
I can read it a few different ways.
I put this in the chat. Just curious. I work more in a implementation aspect. So my role is essentially project managing onboarding clients with my company. This is specifically, I've watched a number of, I want to be respectful, a number of hiccups, speed bumps, and items missed from a development standpoint, as far as rolling out client-facing portals and other details. And I think I've been told they work in an agile environment, and I don't know what kind of iterations and partnership. I don't know who's doing essentially the development testing and user acceptance. And I personally, from my perspective, I don't think that individual that is acting as a, the business owner, I hate to use business in that aspect, but that's acting as the product owner that's responsible for guiding the development team and such. I don't know if they're doing extensive testing or have the business background to be putting in requirements and saying if something passed and was sufficient to push to production. Whereas in a perfect agile world, iterations, partnership, and testing and having that acumen would allow that person to go test and say, no, this is not going to qualify. It's missing this. So I don't, it's not my world, but I'm watching stuff break. So I come from an operations background, so I just don't know if they have the right folks with the right acumen making those business related, I say product owner, approvals. And I'm like, how do I get the car to stop skidding on black ice?
Well, the good thing is, as bad as this might sound, you are seeing the skidding. And the beauty of Scrum or other agile practices, it does bubble up things quicker, right? If you're in a shorter cycle of time, even better. and then you can decide what to do based on who's empowered, whether you have the right decision makers, corporate culture, right? It seems you have either a proxy product owner or a fake product owner, as the term came from Craig Larman and Les. You know, it could be some people may have been baptized to take on this role and wear that hat, right? That's one thing. Then I think there are other things that I'm hearing. There might not be a solid definition of done, excuse me, because that is one place where the team can hold each other and accountable in that state. And if you are doing something like a Scrum cycle, it does include testing. You know, you don't want to delay it. You want to code a little bit, test along the way, document along the way, whatever is needed in smaller chunks and increments. And come time for that sprint review, see what feedback emerges, even if it's getting mud on your face, but then have the product owner say, hey, you know, this is where we're at. This is what we have overlooked. Or, hey, we haven't forgotten this. Here is where we're going to tackle it in our product backlog. Maybe if you are looking ahead, maybe point out the sprint as well. So depending on how many sprints the team has gone into, depending on what the organization has provided as someone taking on this role, and of course, some other things. You can always get into talking about a multitude of things. So I don't know if that offered any insights or just a familiar story of the skidding.
I actually have a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
Do you think the problem is that the product owner misunderstood what the customer needed? Or do you think the problem was they had the right concept, but they didn't have all the use cases, or they were making mistakes with the use cases?
I don't think the product owner fully understood the requirements as they're writing them and defining them. I don't think from a portal or a system, a user interface aspect, I don't think they quite understood. I'm not going to get into the weeds and
Yeah.
but I mean there's certain basic foundations, and I work in healthcare, so if you're building out a system requirement and something is, I mean, as simple as if a copay, a deductible, a co-insurance, something that in any portal, any app that shows as patient responsibility is not showing as patient responsibility in what you just built and pushed out, there's something severely amiss. So I think Nitin nailed it head on. I think that there's a very receptive and iterative environment. I think they're updating, any production issues in quick sprints and updates, and they're moving through any backlog of items and things bubbled up. But I don't know if the team had the right acumen to, I'm going to use the business knowledge, the foundation. I don't think they investigated an old portal versus the new portal and why the old one functioned that way, and they changed up logic without asking the right folks, is this okay to change? So I was just curious, everybody here has a great background in working in different cultures, environments, and positive ways to suggest room for improvement. So
yeah. So I think I'm just going to re-echo and validate some of what you've said. So I'm hearing two things now. One is there's a tech element, right? Sometimes it's a lift and shift, as we say, or hey, we have an older portal or we want to modernize it, and so on. I'm actually a licensed insurance producer, and I have my health and life insurance license as well. So yeah, some of those things like copay, deductibles, insurance, and I'm a consumer as well. It can boggle the mind, but the key thing is, what is it that we want to put in the hands of the customer? And then it gets into who is our customer, and do we have our true personas, right? And is the product owner working with the enterprise, the organization, maybe with developers, and maybe reflecting this and validating it? So this might be a tip. So even if we say, hey, we don't have, or we think we may not have the most ideal candidate, what can we do to nurture them and some of their activities and say, hey, try these things and see if you can fill them up, or present it as an open question or open-ended thing to members of the dev team. So if the product owner cannot answer them, just make sure somebody's still asking those questions. And if a Scrum Master has the ability to bubble it up, put it in the organizational impediment backlog, get those answers, and who knows, something might shift. So being diplomatic here.
No, I love it. Thank you,
The
Ben.
another thing to think about is maybe getting access to SME, subject matter experts. Because thinking about it, a product owner can't know everything. It's like you're looking for a unicorn if you think that person's going to know every single thing. So they need to leverage what they have around them. Like I've worked with product owners who had like an army of business analysts behind them, creating the requirements and answering the questions and stuff like that. So, there's ways that you could possibly supplement that lack of knowledge until that product owner, gets up to speed, to where you're expecting that the product owner to be. So it's not the product owner should be standing there alone. Maybe the Scrum Master or somebody could maybe, suggest to the product owner, hey, do you have any SMEs that are experts in this area that can help really refine these requirements? And then the team also, that they can help defining all the non-functional requirements that are being asked, for the team to do. So it's definitely the product owner job is the toughest. Knit and live through it. I've worked as a Scrum Master throughout my career, but the buck stops at the product owner. It's a really hard job.
Yeah. One thing that can be done in cases as complex as healthcare or aerospace, or it's hard. Accountancy is just as hard as rocketry. If you can treat the use case development, the requirements development as a product that has to be developed. So as the development team is working on whatever they're developing, these folks are working on the requirements that are going to feed the next sprint, the next iteration. Depending on which cycle you're using. So you can have that, okay, here's what we think our requirements product is, here's what we think the use cases are, and you can actually validate them by going to folks that are going to use the system. That doesn't always flesh out the kinds of things you're talking about where, wow, we found out in this particular use case under these conditions, the legacy system does this weird thing. Oh, there's a good reason for it. You're not going to find all of those, but thinking of the requirements in these cases as a product to be developed is really valuable.
So anything else we want to cover on this? We okay?
I'm good. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments? All right, let's see if there were any changes in the votes.
Okay, not sure if this is a question or a statement. I don't know the person that put it in. Via ChatGPT can create user stories.
Yeah, so we did see this in a live demo as well. But yeah, if anybody gives context, go ahead.
Yes, it's Ramon. It was me. So basically to tell the team that you can create user stories in ChatGPT. I have used it before and it works really great. You can create user stories. In fact, I had a ChatGPT create a fake brainstorming session just to show my team in a coaching session that I had. What's the benefit of having brainstorming when a new request is made to the IT team? So it's useful for that, but it can create real user stories. If you do the correct prompt engineering, that's the name of that. If you do that, you provide the correct statement to ChatGPT, you can create the user stories as you need them. You can also create meeting summaries, everything you want. So it can really help you speed up things, to do the things faster. And any task you can utilize it to create not only stories, as I said, you can create it to maybe wrap up meetings and brainstorming sessions, and that can save time. So you can dedicate time on very value-added tasks and not only mechanical tasks, as I call them, when you have to do the same thing every day without any value added. So I encourage the team to utilize more ChatGPT. If you opt in the paid service, you can create files and many other things that you can utilize in your project management.
Thank you for that. And I'm just curious, as a coach, were you demonstrating that as a product coach or an agile coach or an engineering coach? Tell us a little bit about your background, Ramon.
Oh yes, I am a business analyst, so my team is
Oh, okay.
composed of business analysts, but they are not knowledgeable. They don't know too much about project management, so they commit many mistakes when doing new requests from stakeholders. So I try to help the team streamline how the things should be done. Basically, I also had a YAL certification, and then in the way of having renewed, and I have my PMP certification as well. So it's something that I know what it is, and ChatGPT do some work for me. I think you should do, or you can do the same. It's what I really encourage everybody in today's meeting, that use more ChatGPT. Now it's ChatGPT, but we'll start using by next week other tools also to do project management work. So I will give you by the next session, maybe I can provide you with more inputs on that, on the other tools that are available in the market.
Okay, thank you for those insights. Yeah, I would be curious, again, remembering my product owner days, whether ChatGPT can give us, different flavors. Like, can it use the invest model or variations? Can we use specification by example? Of course, there's test-driven development. That's more on the development execution side. Sorry, I meant to say BDD, the behavior-driven development, and that formatting as well. So ChatGPT might have to be trained or need to learn, or unless it has all of that. And of course, I'd also look closely into whether it can understand if it has a definition of done for an existing theme for those stories in question. So certainly it's going to help save time, augment it, maybe give up titles. But I'd be curious to see how far it goes. Just some thoughts.
Okay, Nitin, so we have 2 minutes left. We'll definitely, Nitin and I will be, and John will be staying on after, when we hit the top of the hour. So I think we could call this Lean Coffee to a close, even though the next question, I was really looking forward to talking about it. But anyway, we can't do it because we don't have enough time. So this group, we're the last Wednesday of the month. So whenever there's a PMI New Jersey chapter meeting, we will meet, and the topics will vary. This particular session was on Lean Coffee, and as Nitin mentioned, last session was on AI. So there's always something different to look forward to.